Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the White Rabbit Podcast. I am your co-host, Matt Kraus from Bonderma, Turkey. And your other co-host is Alper from Barcelona,
Is another
Spain.
B city.
Another B city, yes. And we realized just a few minutes before we recorded this that we are coming up on our 4th anniversary of this podcast. So we've been doing this thing for almost 4 years now. Our 4th anniversary is the 31st of March, 2022. So on the date of this recording, at least. So that's in about a week or so, I think.
Yeah.
Wow. So we've been around for 4 years. And that dovetails nicely. By the way, back up a second. So the reason that we picked that date was because the name of this podcast, The White Rabbit, of course, there's the Lewis Carroll reference, but the reason that we picked this title for the podcast, The White Rabbit, was because we are both big fans of the movie The Matrix. And if I remember correctly, Alper, The Matrix was released on 31st of March or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think that's why we picked up the date. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why we picked up the date. Anyway, our topic for today is that even after, because I mentioned on our last episode that even after almost 4 years of recording, I still get nervous before we record an episode, or every time that we record an episode. And even when I'm not doing most of the talking, even when we have a guest, I still get nervous. And Alper said, well, sometimes that's a good sign. And I thought, wow, that's a good counterintuitive thing to know. So Alper, so tell me more about what you meant by that. Why would that be considered a good thing to be getting nervous?
Well, first, an honest disclaimer. We're recording this in the afternoon, my time, and your time as well. And several hours before this, I had an online webinar where I was speaking to like a couple of hundreds of people. And I had the same, not before, but immediately after starting it, I was like, okay, I'm not going to be able to do this. And this has been going on for 4 years as well. Like every single time.
I was going to say, you do these webinars often, right? This is not the first time that you've done one of these things, and you still get nervous, huh?
Yeah.
Really?
And every single time I start, it's like, okay, I need to remember to breathe. And I need to remind myself that, no, I'm not going to have to leave and let so many people down, because it has happened before. It's happening again right now. Probably it's going to keep happening in the future. And since it's not the first time, and since after this episode that we made with you, you mentioned that you also get nervous.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about how, in a very basic sense, it just means that you care about what you are going to be part of. Because when you think about it, if you didn't care, if you didn't have anything like related to some investment in terms of time or effort into doing this, would you really feel nervous? Would you feel anything at all? I think it's not something wrong with us. It's not a flaw. I think it's a very clear signal that what you're about to do is something that matters to you.
If I had nothing invested in the topic, if I didn't care, I would probably walk in there and I'd be like bored out of my skull. I just want to wrap up and leave.
Yeah. I think it's important to shift maybe an inner narrative there from, well, I'm nervous, what am I going to do, to something like, okay, this is important for me. It shows that I care about this. And that's actually a good thing, because, well, we're talking about situations in which you are speaking to people. I, for example, as a listener, I don't think I would enjoy a conversation or a speech from someone who's like, I don't care. Like, no, of course. I mean, it would distance you from the audience, and it would distance the audience from you. So it wouldn't serve anything. So I think a way to reframe this whole nervousness thing is to realize that your body is reacting in this way because you are doing actually something that matters and something that is important for you.
Okay, so I have a question about this. So let's do an example to make things more specific. Let's say that my boss this afternoon said, "Oh, you've got to give a presentation tomorrow," or something like that. And then I walk into the presentation and I'm getting all nervous, my hands are sweating, my mouth feels dry, blah blah blah. I'm getting all nervous. So, and I'm wondering, okay, so how do I tell the difference between Matt, everything's okay. It's just that you care about this. You're in this happy, happy Alper land where, like, it's okay to be nervous because it's just a sign that you care about the subject. And so, how do I tell the difference between that and, okay, well, there's a problem here. I should work on my presentation skills a little bit. How do I know the difference between those two things?
It's a good question, which I'm going to answer in two ways. I'm going to give a very short answer, and then maybe we can dig deeper into the longer one. I think the short answer is, are you running off the stage? Is it something unbearable? And is it hindering your performance at work? Like, are you
Mm.
receiving feedback as in, hey, Matt, you need to work on these skills because we could see that you were shaking like what, what is something that shakes? A Christmas tree, maybe after
I don't know.
the
What
Christmas?
shakes? Maybe, well,
Something
an
that shakes.
earthquake. A building in an
Well, yeah,
earthquake? You were shaking like a building in an
yeah,
earthquake.
yeah.
Okay.
So, of course, that's a very clear sign that there is something that you need to work on. But the long answer is about when I think back to all the trainings, to all the interviews, to all the conversations that I had people dealing with presentation anxiety, I think I'm able to point them into, not point, but categorize them into three main things. Like, um, we mostly are afraid if the presentation is completely going to fall apart. We mostly are afraid what as to what might happen if I freeze completely in front of people.
Yeah.
And maybe not as much as fear, but there is also the thought pattern which says, okay, everyone, I look around, I see the guy before me, I remember all the presentations that I watched before, and everyone seems to be better than I do, so what's the point? So I think these are the three mindsets that we put ourselves into when we think about how nervous and not excited, how nervous and anxious we are. So in that regard, I think what I'm going to say is not the easiest thing to do on the planet in life, because I have been there myself. But if you are finding yourself trembling, if you are finding yourself shaking and feeling nervous during the presentation, I think the best thing you could do would be to ask yourself if your anxiety is falling under one of these categories.
Mhm.
Are you comparing yourself with someone else? Are you afraid that your presentation is going to fall apart completely? And are you afraid that you will just freeze and completely forget your lines in front of other people? Because the thing is, why I advocate it's important to self-question this. None of these things are based on reality. None of them reflect the truth. No, your presentation will never completely fall apart. And no, not everyone is presenting better than you do, although you think that you are the only one in a world of 8 billion people, like you're the worst. That's not true. And it's very, very likely that you will not freeze in front of other people completely. So when you realize that, then you can start working on maybe self-regulation and maybe a self-convincing of, okay, this is not going to go down the tubes. I'm going to recover from this. It may take several moments to do that, but I'm going to be able to do that. I mean, just like what happened to me this morning and the week before and the week before and the week before during all these webinars. I mean, my mind at that moment is like, okay, you need to hit comment quit. exit the meeting because you're not going to be able to finish this. It has never happened once in so many years. So it is important to distinguish what is real and what is perceived doom, let's say, at that moment.
So back up a second. And so let's say, because I like this thing that you mentioned about comparing myself to other people in the hypothetical example. So let's say that I'm giving a hypothetical, or I'm my hypothetical example is that, I'm giving a presentation, and let's say I'm giving an investment pitch presentation. So I'm giving an investment pitch presentation, and I compare myself to the people who have come before me. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I have a pretty good idea and there's a pretty good team. So I think I have a pretty good presentation, but the people who came before me, like, they just seemed so natural up on stage, and they seemed so relaxed, and they just seemed perfect up there. Like, who am I to think that I warrant, investment pitch presentations are often pretty short, what are they, 5-10 minutes, something like that? Okay. Who am I to think that I warrant 5 or 10 minutes of this audience's time? What do I do then? So I'm comparing myself to the people who came before me. It's making things worse because I'm getting more and more nervous. The more and more I think, I feel like I just got to take a drink just to shut my brain up. And I'm in this awful spiral where I just keep getting more and more nervous. What do I do then?
Well, first of all, it is quite possible that they are better than you. It is quite possible that they are more relaxed. It is quite possible that they perform better on the stage. Yes, all of this is possible. I'm not saying that just because you feel bad, I mean, you should just take it and not do anything about it. But I think at that point, it's also important to compare apples and apples. Like, are you comparing your sensations with their visible success or the full picture? Because the full picture may be that they have been rehearsing for 2 weeks, man, straight. So maybe you haven't done that. But at the same time, just like in most situations where you feel nervous and then you ask people and they say, well, we didn't realize that. It's also possible that they are also nervous inside. They are feeling that, and you don't see the full picture. So you don't know what is going on. So if you compare your current state of emotions and this anxiety to the visible, relaxed mode of someone else, of course, it's going to be an inaccurate comparison. This is not to say that you shouldn't get nervous. Of course, you can get nervous. And of course, you can compare yourself. I mean, I do it, you do it. I'm sure so many people do it all the time.
Sure,
But
sure.
But it's also important to do a useful comparison, not a useless one. And for example, I would say a useless comparison can sound something like, well, I'm at that stage, I look at them, well, I'll never be as good as they are, so why should I bother? Well, there's no use in thinking this way. And from the top of my head, maybe a useful comparison could be like, okay, so there are people in front of me coming before me who are handling the Q&A pretty well. They seem pretty relaxed on the stage. So this is possible. If someone is able to do it, then I should be able to do it as well. What are the things that I need to work on so the next time I see someone presenting well before me, it doesn't push me down this path of self-pity and negative comparison, and it can actually remind me of the days that, well, I used to feel like that, and look at me now. Thank God I put the effort. So I think it's important, again, to frame the reality as it is going on without turning it into a doomsday scenario where you will never be able to become those people. No, because that's not the case.
Let me see if I'm hearing you correctly. So, as for the comparison part, so if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is make sure that you are not comparing your inner state to their outer state. So if inside
Which
you
is the
feel
only
nervous,
visible thing that you receive, yes, and you may never
yeah,
know the full picture. Yeah.
there you go. So they, on the outside, they look composed and relaxed, but you have absolutely no idea what's going on inside. Is that what you're saying? So, if you don't know
Hmm.
what's going on the inside, then
Yes.
take your comparisons with a really big grain of salt. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then
Yes, exactly. And
another interest.
of
Oh, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, so and another thing, and let's back up even further, right to the beginning. You mentioned an interesting thing that I want to point out again, which is it is important to reframe what's happening instead of thinking that if I remember correctly, what you said was it's important to, instead of thinking of yourself as nervous, don't use that word anymore. Don't think it that way anymore. Just think, okay, well, I care about the subject. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. And by the way, when you think about it, think about the physical sensations that you have when you're nervous and when
Uh-huh.
you're excited. How
Okay.
different are they? Are they very different? I mean, your heart rate, your alertness, even maybe your breathing, I would bet that they're pretty much the same.
Yeah.
So
Come to
I'm
think of
not,
it, they
I'm
are.
not, yeah, I'm not talking about, you know, just think positively and tell yourself that I'm not nervous, I'm just excited. I don't think that works. It works like that. But from time to time, you can remind yourself that, okay, my body is showing signs of nervousness, but it can also be showing signs of excitement because uh, if you tell yourself, okay, I need to calm down, I need to calm down, I need to calm down, I, I don't think, I don't think it's going to work miracles. But instead, if you accept that, okay, I'm excited and my body is showing signs of it, I'm excited. So I don't think it's going to be like the golden key to stop your nervousness and make you the most comfortable person on the stage. But I remember even reading some research about how just this small shift can change the way you perceive the bodily sensations that is going on at that moment, and it helps you to reframe the nervousness as excitement. But of course, I mean, there are other ways. So, for example, if you do find yourself in that situation, you're very nervous, you're shaking to the point of maybe fearing that you will not be able to continue. Of course, I would. There are things that I can recommend, and they don't have to do anything with think positive, focus, or use your mind to relax yourself. But it's actually breathing, a very simple breathing exercise. I mean, I do that from time to time, especially before large engagements. And I've seen it work. There is also research showing that it works. And it's so simple, just what is called a box breathing. Have
Yeah.
you heard about that before?
No. So I'm wondering, what is this breathing technique that Alper is talking about? What is he doing?
Well, I didn't know about it until I needed it.
Okay.
It was one of those times when I was thinking, okay, I need to learn how to deal with this situation because it's not
Sure.
like I cannot convince myself every single time I want to run out of the room. So So box breathing is where you take equal time to breathe in, to hold it, to exhale, and then to hold it again after exhaling. So it's like you
Mm,
take a breath in 4 seconds, you count
okay.
in your mind from 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you hold it for 4 seconds.
Okay.
You release it, you exhale in 4 seconds. And I think maybe the important part is after exhalation, you hold your breath again for another 4 seconds before breathing in.
Okay.
For me, for example, this works miracles. It's much better than trying to reshape my mind or send positive vibes into the room. For me, it really works, and I have heard this from other people as well. So in that situation, you're next up in line. There are people in front of you who are speaking really good, and it's triggering this comparison within you, which in turn leads to an anxiety or some overexcitement that you think you feel you cannot handle.
Uh-huh.
Okay, do this breathing technique.
Yeah, yeah. I think this it occurs to me that the nervous as in the, the negative aspect, the kind that gets in the way of you getting your point across clearly. That kind of nervousness, you can deal with that in some very simple physical ways, like this breathing technique that you mentioned. And, another sign of negative nervousness, the kind of nervousness that gets in the way. Another sign of negative nervousness is, cotton mouth, not dry mouth, not being able to speak. And that can be taken care of by just having a glass of water next to you. So between breathing and having a glass of water next to you, it's these physical signs that you are talking about. Is actually pretty easy to deal with those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There is also one more thing that I use, but for this, I'm talking about not during the speech, but before the speech, before you take the stage, before the presentation begins, before you open your mouth or it is your turn to speak.
Okay.
And that's about building some like personal connections with the people in front of you. I mean, you
Yeah.
know where you will be presenting. It's going to be either a room, a hall, or something. So there will be people there. And the trick that I started doing years ago is to go there early and actually
Mm.
talk to some of the people. Talk to some of the
Okay.
people
Yeah.
whom I will be looking at when
Uh,
speaking.
yeah.
Like some small talk with the attendees. And as a heavily introverted person, I'm also heavily challenged with this. But like I said, I had to find ways to reduce my nervousness and anxiety. And
Okay.
I realized that having those small moments with those people in the room goes a long way when the time comes for you to stand in front of them, and you're suddenly looking at several barely familiar faces, not complete strangers, but people whom you had just an interaction with moments before, or minutes before, or maybe half an hour before the presentation. I think this turns the entire room um, from a passive audience into some participants you're having a conversation with.
Oh, okay.
For me, it has worked. And this is
Yeah.
something that I still do today. So instead of just showing up at the exact moment to start speaking and trying to deal with it at that moment, I show up before, I introduce myself, I arrive early and do some small talk with the attendees.
Yeah. It sounds like a really good tip. It works for you, and I've also seen it work for a lot of other people too. So it's not
Hmm.
just you.
Okay. Okay.
Uh,
Well, I
so
didn't come up with that. I read it I think I remember reading it in a book as well.
yeah. Okay.
Like, I need to do something. What do I do? So it was one of those tips.
So we're gonna have to wrap up in a few minutes here, but before we wrap up, so is there anything else that you wanted to cover on this topic?
Breathe. I think that's the most important part.
Yeah,
Just
breathe,
keep breathing.
and then some of the other physical things. Breathe. Put a glass of water next to you. You don't want to drink from the glass of water maniacally every 20 seconds. You don't want to look like you're starving. You just came in from the Sahara, but it's always nice to
Yeah.
have a couple sips there.
It's a very good point. I mean, I have one in front of me in every
Uh,
conversation.
yeah.
And when I think about it, the thought of not having it in front of me would maybe dry my mouth faster than the speech would, because I think it would be something psychological.
Yeah,
So
that's a
yeah.
good point. And I've got one here too. And you know, during the entire duration of this podcast, I haven't even took one drink from it, I don't think. But
Hmm.
it's
Yeah,
still
me
just
neither.
having it there relaxes
But it's
me.
there.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so okay, so we've got the breathing, we've got the have some water next to you. And then back to the thing that you mentioned at the very beginning. Uh really important, it sounds like, is do this mindset shift thing where instead of thinking of the good nervousness as nervousness but good, just think of it in a completely different way. What was a phrase that you used to describe it? Love for what you were doing, or passion for your topic, or something like that?
The one, it's being a very simple signal that you care about what you're about to do.
Yeah, seeing
It's
your
important for you.
there you go. That's a great tip. See these remaining signs as a signal that you care about what you're about to do, not as
Mhm.
a bad thing that has to be eliminated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
That's the biggest mindset change. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So we'll wrap it up here. So we'll see you again at the next episode. Thanks for tuning in
All right.
and have a good day.
You too. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Take care.